Hello, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. I'm here today with Kamales, and we're going to talk about the human side of digital transformation. It's something that I'm really passionate about. So I'm really pleased that you've decided to talk about that today. So many people talk about tech around digital, and I know that you're really passionate about this as well. So, but before we get in, where can people find you?
Definitely welcome and happy to be here with you today, Tim. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty much on every social media channel, so it's fairly easy to find me. But if you want to reach out to me directly, my email is klardi@lardipartner.com, and do check out our website as well, lardipartner.com, basically.
And I think we actually met on Twitter through an introduction from Keith Keller from Melbourne in Australia.
Definitely. And he's amazing on Twitter, and I'm always intrigued by the content he shares, and he's a great connector. So I'm fairly active on Twitter as well. I think the type of connections you get on Twitter are much more interesting, and people are a lot more open about their opinions there. So it's a great channel.
So just go through quickly. You live in Switzerland, so how have you got to the point where you know so much about digital transformation? So what's been your journey?
Definitely. So I have to say, I am originally Malaysian, and I came to Europe to do my MBA probably about 20 years ago, something like that. And I've been in the tech implementation side for over 21 years now. I started off with Accenture, where we did a lot of tech implementation in Asia. And then I joined Deloitte Consulting here in Zurich, and I was the head of Deloitte Digital until 2012. And after that point, I decided to start my own consulting firm, Lardi and Partner Consulting, to focus on digital business transformation as well as emerging tech implementation. And I think one of the things that I'm really passionate about is the transformative impact of technology. We're seeing the acceleration of technology development, and some of these tech solutions are becoming incredibly accessible across various industries, and it's just changing the way traditional business runs, right? So the traditional rules and assumptions about how you run a business and how you manage your people and how you create value in the market, that's completely been transformed by tech. And I'm really passionate about that.
And 2 years ago, 2 years ago, I had people coming on this having difficulty with the tech. I never get people having difficulty with the tech anymore. Now that's either because the tech's got easier to use, or people just another Zoom call. Oh yeah, I know how to do that. And I think that people now got used to using the tech as well, haven't they?
I think they've gotten used to using it, and in general, what we're finding is people are adopting technology a lot quicker, almost as quickly as it's being developed.
Yep.
We're demanding this sort of digital, physical, hybrid interactions from every company and every brand that we engage with as consumers. And so I think this level of adoption, it's also become a lot more accessible to us, hasn't it? If you look at the price of technology, if you look at the affordability, connectivity, and internet and Wi-Fi access and all of these elements, it's just made it a lot easier for us to implement. The one thing that keeps surprising me, though, is people are adopting technology very quickly. Technology is developing rapidly, but companies are still struggling. They're still going on this kind of long journey to get to a point where they can embed technology as part of their value chain.
So what does digital transformation mean to you? How do you define it?
So I think what is probably the most the thing that stands out for me for digital transformation is it's an organization-wide change. It's something that completely transforms the way an organization operates and creates value in the market. And it involves leveraging technology in order to do that across every functional area in your business. What I'd like to stress, though, is from my experience, digital transformation is not a project. It's not something that you can, build out as a project that has a starting point, an end point, and a delivery at the end. It truly does involve changing the culture and the DNA of your company and changing the way your organization operates to create sustainable value.
And I totally agree. It's digital transformation is. We've seen digital change so much even over the last 10 years, and it will continue to change as mobile changes, the internet, and and social media or whatever. So talk about some of the things that you've been involved in, and some of the even more the lessons that you've learned.
Definitely. So what I'd like to clarify though is when we look at digital transformation, because it's such a big element, it can be overwhelming for organizations to take on this journey. And so what we've done is we've broken down transformation into 4 core building blocks. And these involve, for example, customer experience design is a building block. So that involves really digitizing your customer journey, as well as trying to understand the new hybrid customer behavior and how you can engage with them with new value propositions. And then you have the second building block, which is product and service digitization. The third building block is really around people, process, and operations. And your organization structure, upskilling people. So it really involves the internal structure of your business. And then you have business model innovation. And we deal with projects across all 4 of these building blocks. And what we try to do is really look at the transformation holistically for an organization. How can we engage with this company, and how can we help them create a transformation roadmap that aligns with their strategy? And then we help them prioritize really to identify initiatives across the 4 building blocks and pick the ones that create, the ones
quick
that
wins or
sorry.
Quick wins or
Quick wins and rapid returns, as well as the ones that can have a bigger impact on the company itself. And so we create this roadmap of initiatives and help companies implement that. So as an example, something that we've been doing with one of our clients over the last 2 years is really helping them define. We went through the process of defining transformation strategies and roadmap, and then developing a target operating model for the new digital environment. So elements that in the business that need to change in order to support the strategy. And now we're implementing a shared service environment for their internal operations, which is a complete change of their internal structure. So we do quite a range of different types of projects with companies, or we deliver different solutions. We've also done projects around augmented reality development, so app development. We've developed a blockchain solution for the palm oil industry in Malaysia. So I think the range is massive, and it's a really exciting area to be in.
And are there any lessons that you've learned from that in terms of the, because what you've talked about there are in effect could be seen as technology elements. What have you seen the on the people side of that?
I think the main lesson, and this is part of the reason why I'm actually writing a book on the human side of digital.
Oh, fantastic.
And this book is going to come out in sometime April, and it's being published by
2022.
2022.
Fantastic.
To be honest, this is the main lesson that I've learned. And, it dates back even to the early 2000s and late 90s when I used to deliver projects for IT. The people side of transformation is the core element. It can make or break any transformation project. And this not just involves your internal employees, but it goes all the way through ownership of the organization. So board members, for example, as well as leadership and management teams, and the people within the organization. And it does also involve then the external environment. So your customer and market, for example, how they contribute and create triggers for transformation in your company, as well as the partners and suppliers and service providers and collaborators who help transition the organization into this next stage of digital economy. And I think these are some of the elements that I've really learned over the years. Is you need to engage the right people. You need to have involvement top down. Transformation has to be driven by leadership teams, and leadership teams need to be involved all the way through. Yes. So not just engage the project and then, delegate and let it go on, but you need to have them involved. They need to be the ones. Your CEO has to be the one taking the organization on a journey, hand-holding employees, showing them the way, and kind of almost like a captain of a ship, right? You need them to be engaged and navigating through the entire journey.
I once took a CEO to one side and said, you know what, on a Friday about 5:30 when you're getting in the lift on the way, it's the weekend, someone's going to say to you, this digital transformation program, it's a load of rubbish, isn't it? And what you need to, and what you're not allowed to say is, yeah, I don't really believe in it. Because I said that will immediately go around the whole of the organization. You're going to say, no, I think it's really great, and this is really important, strategic to us. And he said, okay, yeah, I'll say it.
I think you're absolutely right. And, even the slightest bit of doubt will come through all the way across to the rest of the organization. And we make it kind of a rule not to work with companies that are not 100% bought onto the process. And that means your leadership team. So we start off by working with the C-level and board members and making sure that they're committed and they're engaged. And then we go into kind of the rest of the initiatives, I would say.
Oh, we just had a comment, which we call it digital transformation today. But can you digital? I mean, it'll always be transformation. So if we focus, we need to. Do you agree?
So, if
you can disagree, by the way.
Yeah, if I understood the question properly, I think the terminology is misleading, though, when we say digital transformation, which is why I do tend to call it digital business transformation. I think we do put too much emphasis on the digital part. And what I've seen over the years as well is companies do tend to implement technology as a way to tick boxes and say, okay, this is the next hype. We have this. We saw this over the last 2 years. We had people and organizations implementing digital transformation. And if I can be a little provocative, we see that.
Please do.
Every couple of months, right? Last year, the big topic was digital transformation, and we had everything was digital transformation related, including job descriptions, including initiatives. And this year, it's going to be, or the coming year, it's going to be metaverse.
It's whatever you won't get away from the metaverse.
Yes, everyone's talking about the metaverse. And so I think these terminologies do tend to be misleading. For me, the strength about the terminology digital transformation is it links back to the fact that transformation is triggered by the technology. And this is absolutely true. It has triggered change in human behavior. It has triggered change in the way we engage as businesses with our customers. It's triggered the change in our customer journeys. If we take a simple example, in the old days, maybe about 5-10 years ago, in the old days, 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, I know. I'd say the same.
The customer journey involved a major part of our customer journey was the purchase element, right? The acquisition element. And today, as we build customer journeys, we can find that a lot of these acquisition pieces can be pushed to the background because technology can initiate and can execute purchase, execution, payment in the background. We don't need, and we can focus on this customer experience element. And so the way technology has changed the way we engage with customers and the way customers can purchase and basically acquire products and services from us. That's, I think, one of the key examples of why digital transformation as a terminology is interesting.
Yes, I was on a panel yesterday, which actually took place in Hong Kong, and it was a panel about social media around that in Asia, and of course that includes China, and all of the. So if we take WeChat for example, it's quite normal in all of the Chinese social media that if you want to buy something and it says buy our product, there's a button and you can press it and you buy it. Whereas in the Western social media, that's like, well, the functionality is there, but nobody ever uses it.
Yes.
And I think that there's that. And so we were talking about the fact that certain things happened in different places. But yes, the process of actually being able to buy is so important.
And I think this is underestimated to a certain extent, particularly when I speak to certain organizations, certain industries. They still have this mindset that people want this traditional way of engaging, the traditional way. The security and data privacy element is big. But if we look at the next generation of people, the Y generation, the millennials, the Z generation, as well as the alphas that are coming up. My daughter is an alpha; she's 10.
Okay, right. Wow.
So they function in a completely different way. She's 10 years old and she has, 10,000 followers on TikTok. She has an Instagram account and she has an e-commerce website where she sells products. She makes and sells slime.
Right.
And, can you imagine her in 10 years when she's an adult in the marketplace, ready to engage with companies, she's not going to want to engage with companies that were built, business models that were built in our generation and the generations before us, right? It's completely different mindset.
Well, I remember that. So when my background is electronics, and I remember when I first got into business, someone said to me, I said, I need to read a business book. And they said, In Search of Excellence, it is the best business book you will ever read. And so I read it, and none of the companies in there which were promoted as being as excellence in business exist anymore.
Oh, wow. That is quite amazing.
It's the same with good to great. None of the companies in there exist anymore. And that's the change that's taken place in the world of society and business. Yeah. And we can see that. My partner's 25-year-old came over for dinner, and we just sit there and watch him, because he says all kinds of things, and we just go, wow, I never thought about that. And there's always an app for everything. There's an app for that.
Huh? And I think the level of creativity, the mindset, they're not looking, this next generation of people are not looking for 9-to-5 jobs. They're very bold and open to entrepreneurship, for example. They don't want to work for your traditional CEO. My daughter, she would never walk into a bank branch to do her banking. Because why would she, when you have, all these other apps and mobile banking and, potentially even cryptocurrencies and so on that would become part of our daily business life in the future. So I think this is really exciting to kind of watch the transformations and transitions that are happening.
So we've got about 3-4 minutes left. So what do you see as the future? Where do you see digital transformation going?
I think in the near future or near to midterm, we're going to see companies, start looking at reconciling some of the initiatives that they've rushed into. So over the last 2 years, many initiatives have been launched to enable e-commerce, to enable continuous business capabilities because of Corona and so on. And so I think there was little, and this I'm generalizing, but what I've seen in the market is there was little thought behind the strategic elements. It was more focused on business continuity. And in the near term, we're going to see companies try to reconcile this in terms of their general business strategy and longer term goals. And so not just focusing on the technology implementations, but taking a step back and trying to see how this fits in the big picture and are we heading in the right direction. In the longer term, I really do hope that companies start looking at business model innovation, exploring what the new generation of customers are going to need, as well as what the market is going to look like. What are some of the growing trends? Particularly, I'm a big believer in the metaverse, not necessarily in terms of the hype that's going on, but in terms of adoption. I think there's a big potential. Like social media was in the mid and late 2000s, I think that's where we are at with that. And so what's the opportunity there? What are some of the real use cases? How will your business model need to transform? I think those are going to be critical for companies to look at.
So we've had a point here from Javier. It's quite a long one, so we need to just take to digital transformation.
Fear of losing your job or laziness.
And I actually would add to that, Javier, that actually some people will deliberately torpedo the initiative.
Yes.
They will actually go out. There's a famous bank here in the UK that has they have a separate organization which they say this is the new bank and there's the old bank. And every 18 months, they get a new leader. The old leader's fired and they get a new leader. Usually I'm approached and I just turn it down because I said, I know what's going to happen. And what happens is that as soon as you do that, here's an old bank and here's a new bank, everybody in the old bank try and kill everything that's going on in all the initiatives that the new bank suggests. It's because it's going to put them out of work. So why wouldn't you? You would do that. So I would say that.
I think, Tim, you're absolutely right in highlighting that. And I love that Javier pointed this out because this has been our experience. As I mentioned earlier, people make or break digital transformation. And I think one of the key elements is I find that a lot of times when you work in transformation projects, you have to almost be like a therapist within the organization because you've got to learn to understand what the motivation for people are. Are they motivated by fear, or are they inspired, or is there a certain fear of loss of control, uncertainty, lack of knowledge? So all of these elements can play into reasons why there might be hesitations around the change that's happening. And it happens with any change, even in our personal lives, right? When something changes in our lives, we are faced with this uncertainty and fear. And so the transformation team has to address these fears head on, and really bring forward education, communication, and support, provide the right level of support to ensure that you take people on this journey and help them understand how that change is going to fit into their business life and how it's going to benefit them in the longer term. And
yes, and I was going to say that's so important to have the leadership to say this is where we're going, but also then communication, explaining to people what's going on.
And I have to say, though, I don't think it's necessarily just a generational thing, because I've seen some boomers and Gen Xers who are really bought onto the process. I've seen millennials who are against change and believe a certain type of tech or direction is more effective. And so, it really depends on individuals, and it depends on how the culture of the organization is built.
So I'm just going to bring up this comment here from Romina. If you look at the
So we clearly see that bias led by APIs and social media platforms. Do you think regulations on API social media should set healthier human interactions? So I know Romina, hello, thank you for joining us. And I think that's a great question. It's something that's been in the news quite a bit these days, and it does create a certain amount of hesitation for me in terms of how these platforms are going to develop. Now, if we go back to 2005, 2007, we didn't know these things when social media was picking up. And so Facebook and all these other channels were able to kind of build its empire and presence, without regulators and the rest of us knowing how it's going to be built. Today, we do have that knowledge, and I think we have also the capabilities and insights to regulate it to a certain extent in terms of how these environments should and could be built. And I think when we talk about algorithmic bias and API, like social platforms and so on, there's a certain amount of trust that goes into how those systems are built, but there's a lack of diversity of knowledge and thought behind the development of these platforms. And a lot of bias that's built into the platforms as well in terms of the data that's used and so on. So this is a big topic where I hope that we can, as technologists and influencers, we can make an impact in the market by sharing some of our knowledge and making sure that we can create certain frameworks that are going to regulate.
There's a hashtag Tech for Good, which is well worth following, which is a movement of people that are looking to see tech used for good, whether it's AI or whatever. So if you guys are on social media, that's worth checking out. Javier also has another question, which is empathy
definitely
needed in transformation?
Empathy is needed pretty much everywhere. This is what I believe. And I think human empathy is something we can't replace with tech. It's something that is unique to us, and it's something that can be learned and developed. Another element, I would say, empathy in terms of leadership teams, leading organizations, and understanding how change affects people, but also vulnerability is a big topic. Making yourself vulnerable and understanding that these changes are going to transform the way we work, the way we engage with one another, and allowing ourselves, I think one of the big things that I've learned over the years is traditionally in business, empathy and vulnerability was seen as weakness.
Yes.
And today, I think we are growing to understand that it's actually a strength. Which I absolutely love.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us today. It's been absolutely amazing. I love your insight, and we got some great comments and questions as well. So that was brilliant. Remind people where they can find you.
I'm on LinkedIn, so look for my name, Kamales Lardi, and you can reach me via email at klardi@lardipartner.com.
Thank you so much. And when your book comes out, nudge me and contact me, and we'll come on and we'll promote it.
Awesome. Very excited.
So please contact me, and we will promote it.
Thank
As
you
an
so
author,
much.
I have to look out for other authors.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kamales. Thank you.
Thank you.